Okay, this one's special. I found it on a Korean forum about a week ago, and I keep going back to it because every time I reread it, I notice something new. It's like a story with secret compartments. Let me just read it to you, and watch your face. My name on the elevator screen always took the same 1.5 seconds to load. I had counted. The 31st floor. The floor where the ones who would matter were placed early, so they could be watched. I had this small pride. I would beat everyone in by 20 minutes. The cleaning staff knew me by name. Yejin would arrive 18 minutes after me every morning. She always brought 2 coffees. One was always for me. She said it like a small ritual. "Senior, your latte." Like she was reading the line for the first time, every time. I was 28 years old, and I was being noticed. The senior managers had stopped using my full name. They called me Junseok. Yejin took notes in the meetings I led. She always asked the smartest question. She asked it after everyone else had finished. At Hweshik dinners, she always sat near me, but never next to me. She knew the seating chart of polite Korean ambition by instinct. She poured my drinks with 2 hands. She covered her glass when senior poured for her. She got the rituals exactly right. I thought she was a good person. I thought we were friends. That is the thing I will keep remembering, after. The promotion announcement came in March. Team leader, the next floor up. My mother cried on the phone when I told her. Yejin congratulated me with both hands. She said, "I'm so proud of you, senior." She did not say, "happy for you." I did not notice the difference between those 2 sentences. Not then. Not for a long time. The first thing that was strange, and at the time it did not feel strange, only kind, was that Yejin began lingering at my desk. She would say she was waiting for me to come back from the bathroom so she could ask one question. She always had one question. The questions were excellent. They were the questions a person asks who is trying to learn the shape of what you are doing. She started asking small personal questions too. About my parents, about my apartment, about my plans if I got promoted again. I told her too much. I told her about the mortgage I had just taken on the small apartment in Mapo. I was proud of it. I told her how much my monthly payment was. I told her the bank had said the next promotion would be enough to refinance. I look back at that conversation, and I understand it was not a conversation. It was an inventory. The strangest thing she ever said to me, she said 2 weeks before everything started, casually, while we were waiting for coffee. "Senior, you know, if anything ever happens to you, I'd save you, right? You know that?" I laughed. I said nothing happens to me. Nothing. The anonymous tip arrived the following Wednesday. The HR director called it a credible report from a colleague. A workplace audit was the formal name for it. 2 HR personnel came to my desk while my whole team watched. They asked permission to open my drawer, the polite Korean word for ordering you to do something. I told them yes. Of course, I had nothing to hide. The senior HR officer reached past me. He pulled out a small white packet, the kind of packet that takes a half-second to recognize. I said, "That isn't mine." He said, "Of course, Mr. Lee." He said it without looking at me. I walked the long walk to the HR conference room behind 2 HR officers. I counted 47 people who looked. I counted Yejin. Yejin was the only person who did not turn her head. She kept her eyes exactly on her monitor. I remember the precision of it. The police came 40 minutes later. I did not understand at the time that this was already over. I thought it was a misunderstanding. At the police station, the lights were brighter than the office somehow. I had not known fluorescent could be brighter than fluorescent. Investigator Park sat across from me. He was tired in the way men in their late 40s are tired. He did not look at me cruelly. He said, "Mr. Lee, I'm going to read you the report. Then I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think happened." I told the truth. I told it in the careful order a person tells the truth, in when he understands the truth is not going to help him. My mother answered the phone on the third ring. She was making dinner. I could hear the doenjang jjigae. She said, "What do you mean, drugs?" 3 times. 3 exact times. Each time the same words and a different voice. The drug test was negative. The hair test was negative. The blood was negative. The drawer test would never be negative. Park called me 3 weeks later. He sounded tired in a new way. He said, "We are closing the file. There will not be charges." He said, "I want you to know, I do not think you did this. I want you to know that." Then he said, "It will not matter." When I came back to clear out my desk, 3 weeks after the audit, Yejin was sitting in my chair. She had a new business card. She said, "Senior, I'm so sorry." She said it with the half-second smile, the same one she had brought my coffee with. The first job interview was at a smaller firm. They had been excited about my CV. I knew within 40 seconds of the meeting beginning. They smiled too much. They thanked me too thoroughly for coming. They said the position had been filled internally that morning. Korea has a small number of professional industries. Korea has an even smaller number of HR directors. They all know each other. By the 7th interview, I had stopped writing thank you notes. By the 10th, I had stopped checking my email in the morning. The mortgage statements kept coming. The bank had a polite way of asking for what they were going to take. I called my mother and lied. I told her I was waiting for something to come through. She lied back. She said, "Take your time." My father did not get on the phone. He had not spoken to me directly since the police had visited their building looking for an address. The repossession of the car came on a Tuesday. They have a polite way of doing this too. They knock first. I watched the truck pull away. I had nowhere to go, so I stood there until the building manager came out and asked if I was all right. The bank meeting was on a Thursday. The branch manager treated me with the careful sympathy that means there is no choice left. He explained the surrender option in the same tone he probably used to congratulate clients on their new homes. I signed. I walked out into a sunny afternoon. I had not noticed before stepping outside that the day was beautiful. The apartment I had been so proud of took 2 days to empty. I had not realized how little I owned until I was carrying it. The last thing I did before turning in the key was stand in the kitchen and listen to how silent an empty apartment is. The Goshiwon was a single room on the 4th floor of a building behind a hagwon. The walls were thin. The walls were so thin. I could hear the student next door reciting English vocabulary at midnight. I could hear him crying at 2 a.m. He did this every night. The food cost of cup ramen at the GS25 across the street was 1,200 won. I had calculated I could eat for 90 days on what was left. I had started doing the delivery shifts at night. The helmet had a sun visor that hid my face. I was grateful for the helmet. One of my old coworkers ordered a chicken to his apartment. The address auto-completed before I could close the app. I almost laughed. I canceled the delivery and ate the chicken alone in the Goshiwon. It tasted strange. I think the strangeness was me. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in November, I sat at the Goshiwon's shared sink and did the math one more time. The math kept not changing. I had been doing math on my future for so long that I had forgotten that math was supposed to give you answers. The pojang matcha by the bridge was open in the cold. I sat for an hour. The ajuma kept refilling my odeng broth without asking. She did not speak to me. She slid an extra plate of small sweet potatoes toward me at one point. She did not look at me when she did it. I left her my last folded bill under the empty bowl. She had not charged me for the sweet potatoes. I did not want to be in her debt. The walk from the Pojangmacha to the bridge was 4 minutes. The fog had come in. The fog made the streetlights seem further away. I had been doing this walk in my head for 3 weeks. I had practiced it. There was a strange relief in finally walking it. The bridge was empty. November bridges at 3 a.m. are. The traffic noise was somewhere far away, like a sound from a previous life. I walked to the middle. I stopped. I do not remember thinking very much. I remember the cold. I remember the lights of the river barges. The thing I will tell you about that moment is this. I was not crying. I was not afraid. I had simply stopped being a person who decided things. I noticed the grain of the metal under my hands. I noticed a small dent in the railing. I noticed it for a long time. What I did not notice, what I would only register much later when I was trying to understand, was the black sedan parked at the far end of the bridge. A woman's voice spoke beside me. She said, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Is your phone working? Mine died and I really need to make a call." I came back to my body in pieces. I remember my hands being on the railing. I remember thinking about how to say no to a stranger politely. She talked. She talked about being lost. She talked about her sister waiting up. She kept talking until I was walking with her off the bridge. The diner she chose was on the riverside. "Open all night," she said. "I'm starving. Will you sit with me? Just for 10 minutes. Inside it smelled of broth and old grill oil. The TV played a muted news channel. I had not been in a warm room in a long time. She ordered for both of us. She did not ask. Looking back, I understand she did not want me to have a chance to leave the table. 2 bowls of kalguksu arrived. She slid one across to me. She said, "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. I'll talk." And she did. For an hour, she talked about nothing. About a cousin's wedding, about a movie she had seen, about wanting to learn to bake bread. At some point, I noticed I had cried. I did not remember starting. She did not say anything. She handed me a paper napkin and kept talking. When we left, it was almost dawn. The sky over the river had gone pale blue at the edge. She wrote her number on the back of the receipt. She said, "Call me, or don't. I just wanted you to know, whatever it is you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone tonight." She walked away in the direction of the parked cars. I did not turn to watch her. I would think about that later. I called her 3 days later. I had failed to call for 2 days. The 3rd day, I tried to throw the receipt out and found I could not. She picked up on the 2nd ring. She said, "Junseok si. I was hoping. I'm so glad." No surprise in her voice, looking back. We met at a park by the river. She wore the same cream coat. She was easier to look at in daylight than I had remembered. She did not ask me what had happened. Not for 3 weeks. When she finally did, she did it in a way that did not feel like asking. She listened to the whole thing without moving. When I had finished, she said, "That woman ruined your life. And you know what is worse?" She said, "No one in your industry is brave enough to give you a chance. They are all too afraid of the rumor. I'm sorry. I am so sorry." She said, "My father is not in your industry. I would like you to meet him, not as a favor. Just because I'd like him to meet you." Chairman Han received us in his office on a Saturday. The office was on the 18th floor of a building in Yeoksum. The view was the city. He did not stand when we came in. He gestured to the armchairs. He poured tea himself. He did not look at me directly at first. He let Minho talk for 15 minutes. He listened without expression. He asked eventually, "Mr. Lee, what kind of work do you want to do?" I told him. I told him too much. I told him the truth. He listened to all of it. Then he said, "I believe in second chances." The new company was small, 12 people, investment vehicle, he called it. He said, "You will be its first CEO. We will build it together." I signed the papers in his office the following Tuesday. I read them, but I read them the way a man reads papers in a dream. My name was on the door on the first Monday. Lee Junseok, Chief Executive Officer. I stood in front of it for almost a minute before I went in. The team of 12 stood when I entered the floor. They bowed, not deeply, just enough. I learned later that Chairman Han had told them everything. The senior accountant, Mr. Yoon, was older than Chairman Han. He shook my hand with the dry pressure of a man who had shaken many CEO hands before. The apartment Minho had picked for us was in Seocho. The ceilings were high. The hallway from the front door to the living room took 6 full steps. My mother visited from Daegu. She walked through the apartment without speaking. In the kitchen, she said, "Junseok, whose place is this, really?" At dinner with Chairman Han, my father bowed deeper than I had ever seen him bow. I watched his back curve, and I did not recognize the angle. Minho proposed marriage to me in March. She did it backwards. She said, "My father has already asked me when." I told him I would ask you first. The lawyer at the office was named Mr. Choi. He sat in on every signing. He never said anything. He just nodded when I asked if a document was standard. The first major loan came through in April. 40 billion won. Chairman Han explained it to me in his office over tea. He said, "Trust me, Junseok. The structure is conservative." I noticed that 2 of my subordinates seemed to know more about ongoing business than I did. I told myself this was because they were specialists. One afternoon, I picked up Minho's phone by mistake. A man's voice said, "Is this still the Junseok line?" I said, "What?" He hung up. When Minho came home, I told her. She said, "Oh, that's just one of my father's accountants. He calls me about my allowance." She did not turn around when she said it. Something behind my sternum went heavy and stayed there for the rest of the evening. I told myself the heaviness was about other things. I told myself a lot of things in those months. I walked past my old office building on a Saturday in May. I had not meant to. My feet had taken me. I stood across the street for a long time. Through the glass lobby, I saw Yejin step into an elevator. She was wearing a darker suit than I remembered. She had been promoted again. The next Monday, Mr. Yoon brought me 48 documents in a single morning. He said, "End of quarter rebalancing, sir. Please sign by lunch." A junior employee, a woman named Ms. Park, paused at my office door later that week. She said, "Director Lee, may I ask, what does our company actually do?" I laughed. I told her, "Investment management. You should know that. It's on your contract." She bowed and left. I did not think about it again. I should have thought about it. I have learned since that the first true sign is always a junior employee, asking the question senior employees no longer dare to. Chairman Han played go alone every evening in his office. He took both sides. He said it kept his strategy honest. I did not understand at the time what he was rehearsing. The board meeting in June was about a second round of loans, 80 billion won. The room was crowded. Mr. Choi, the lawyer, sat to my right as always. Mr. Choi turned his head to whisper something to the CFO. I caught his profile for the first time at that exact angle. Something in the back of my head moved. A piece of memory clicked into a slot I had not known existed. I had seen that profile before. In a hallway, in a precinct. On the second day of my original investigation. He had walked past Park's office while I was waiting. I did not move. I did not change my face. I had become good, by then, at not changing my face. I sat through the rest of the meeting and signed what they put in front of me. That night, I lay awake until 4 a.m. Minho slept beside me with her hand on my chest, the way she always slept. I had not realized before how exactly she always placed it. I got up at 5. I went to my study. I opened the box of papers from the original investigation that I had kept in a closet for 2 years. One of the folders had a single photograph clipped to a witness summary. The man's profile. The same precise angle. The same mole near the ear. I sat with the folder open until the sky outside my study window turned gray. I told myself, at first, that all profiles look alike. I told myself that for 15 minutes. I tried to bring it up to Minho the next morning. I said, "Have you ever met Mr. Choi outside the office?" She said, "Mr. Choi who?" without looking up from her tea. I went to Chairman Han's office that afternoon. I told him I had had a strange feeling about something. He listened with the gentle patience he always listened with. I told him about Mr. Choi, about the profile, about the photograph. He did not interrupt me. He let me finish all of it. When I had finished, he said, "Junseok, you have been working too hard. I am at fault. Take a week. Go to Jeju with my daughter. Eat, sleep, come back to me clear." I felt foolish. I felt the kind of foolish you feel when an older man chooses kindness over correction. I thanked him. I went home and packed. Jeju was beautiful. The wind smelled of salt and basalt. Minho held my hand on the cliff walks. I do not remember her phone leaving her pocket once that week. I came back to Seoul on a Sunday night feeling, for the first time in months, like a person who had been wrong about something. I arrived at the office at 7:20 the next morning. The lobby security guard would not meet my eyes. I rode the elevator alone. The 18th floor was full of people in dark windbreakers. Korean Financial Supervisory Service. They were carrying boxes. They were carrying my office. A woman in a windbreaker turned to me. She said, "Mr. Lee Junseok, Chief Executive Officer of Hanjin Strategic Capital?" I said yes. She read me a warrant in a flat professional voice. Financial fraud, money laundering, aggravated breach of trust. I caught maybe one word in 3. They escorted me into the conference room I had chaired meetings in. They sat me down at the head of the table where I had always sat. The lead investigator said, 87 billion won in loans, originated by your company, signed by you, dispersed to 9 entities, none of which exist. I called Minho from a corridor while they conferred. The phone rang 6 times. The voicemail message had been changed. It was the generic carrier message. I called Chairman Han. The number had been disconnected. I called again, slowly, in case my hand had typed it wrong. The number had been disconnected. The investigators released me at 9 p.m. The investigation was ongoing. My passport was held. I was instructed not to leave the country. I rode the subway home alone. The Siocho apartment was completely silent when I unlocked the door. The kind of silence that has been there for hours. Her shoes were gone from the entry rack. Her toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. Her cosmetics were gone from the shelf. Her clothes were gone from the closet. What stopped me was what was left. A single hairband on the bathroom counter. One of mine. She had taken nothing of mine. She had taken nothing of hers either, in the way that matters. My court-appointed lawyer was named Ms. Bay. She was in her 30s. Her office was on the 7th floor of a building near the courthouse. The carpet was worn. She drew me a diagram on a piece of paper. She drew the company. She drew 9 shell entities. She drew the bank loans. She drew the disappearance. At the center of the diagram, she drew a single box. She wrote my name in it. She drew the arrows from my box out to everything. She said, "Mr. Lee, the legal entity that took these loans is you. Every signature is yours. The court will not look past that easily." I asked her if anyone in the company had ever been real. She said, the senior accountant. Mr. Yoon. He has worked for Chairman Han for 31 years. She said, he has held senior accountant titles at 6 previous companies. All of them dissolved under investigation. None of them have ever been charged with him. I went home to the apartment that night. I sat on the floor in the entry hallway. I did not turn on a single light. I could hear the upstairs neighbor's TV through the ceiling. At some point in the night, I noticed I had not eaten since the previous morning. I reheated the same cup of coffee 3 times before I drank from it. The next morning, Ms. Bay called me at 7:42. She said, Investigator Park from your original case has formally requested an interview. He has new information. I had not heard Park's name in almost 2 years. I had thought of him often. I had wondered if he had ever thought of me. I took the subway to the precinct at noon. The same precinct. The same fluorescent lobby. The same plastic chairs in the corridor. Park came out himself to bring me in. He had aged. He shook my hand with both hands. He did not say, I am sorry. He did not need to. The room he took me to was different than the one from before. This one had a long table. There were folders stacked at one end. The chairs faced each other across the table, not at angles. He said, Mr. Lee, before we begin, I need you to understand that you are not the subject of this conversation. You are the witness. He slid the first folder across to me. He said, I want you to look at the photograph on the inside cover. Just the photograph. Tell me if you have ever seen this man. I opened it. The man in the photograph was in his early 30s. Dark hair. A small scar on his right eyebrow. I said, no, I have not. Park said, his name was Lee Daewon. 3 years ago, he was the founding CEO of a small investment vehicle company. 40 billion won in loans, 9 shell entities, all in his name. He slid the next folder. Park Sung-ho. 42 billion won. His name. 2 years ago. He slid another. Choi Minki. 38 billion. 22 months ago. By the time he had finished placing folders, there were 10 of them in a row in front of me. He sat back. He did not speak. He let me count them. I counted them. I counted them again. I said, are there more? He said, you are number 11, Mr. Lee. He tapped the 7th folder gently. He said, this man was 32 years old. He did not survive his pretrial detention. We have been trying to crack this network since. I opened the 7th folder. The photograph inside was of a young man with kind eyes, tired around the mouth, the kind of face you would assume was a younger cousin if you saw it at a wedding. A cold weight settled behind my sternum and stayed there. I had thought I had felt this exact weight before. I had not. I had felt something smaller. Park said, Mr. Lee, we need a witness who is still alive and still standing. Will you help us? I did not answer for a long time. Then I said yes. I moved out of the Seocho apartment that weekend. I rented a small unit in Mapo, not far from the apartment I had lost 2 years earlier. The room was familiar in a way that hurt. My mother arrived from Daegu on the next Sunday. She had taken the KTX alone. My father had stayed home. She brought a small lunchbox of side dishes and her quiet attention. She unpacked the banchan into my small refrigerator. She refolded a towel I had folded incorrectly. She did not ask me a single question about what had happened. When she left for the train, she stopped at the door. She said, Junseok, your father wanted me to tell you. He is sorry. She did not say what for. She did not have to. I worked with Park and Ms. Bay for 4 months building the case. I gave them everything, every signature, every meeting, every conversation I could reconstruct. We mapped the structure. We mapped Mr. Yoon's 6 previous companies. We mapped Mr. Choi's appearances across 4 investigations. We mapped Chairman Han's quiet center. Yejin's name appeared in the records on the 2nd month. She had been a recruiter for the network for 3 years. She had identified 4 of the previous 10. Minho's name was harder to find. It was not her name. She had used 4 identities across her work. Her real name was Kim Sojin. She had been recruited at 22, 8 years earlier. Ms. Bay looked at the 4 photographs and said, "This one was a victim once, before she became this." Park said, "Yes." They did not say more. Chairman Han was arrested on a Thursday morning in October. The news ran his photograph and his net worth. The news did not run my name. Park had asked them not to. The trial began in January. I testified on the 3rd day. The courtroom was the kind of pale wood that Korean courts use because it photographs as neutral. I walked from the gallery to the witness stand. I did not look at Chairman Han. I had decided not to look at him weeks earlier. The decision turned out to be the easiest one I had made in a year. The prosecutor was a woman in her 40s. She asked her questions in a flat, even voice. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She asked me about the 72 signatures. She asked me to confirm each one. I confirmed each one. I had decided to confirm each one weeks earlier. She asked, "And when you discovered what the company actually was, what did you do, Mr. Lee?" I said, "I went to Investigator Park. I asked him if I could be useful." She asked me one last question. She said, "Is there anything you would like the court to know?" I had not been told this question would come. I sat with it for several seconds. I said, "What is in my name, I will answer for. What was put there by other hands, I would like the court to hear named, their names, out loud, in the record." The prosecutor then read each of the 10 previous names into the official record. She read recruit number 7's name slowly. She read it twice. The verdict came in March. Chairman Han received 22 years. Mr. Yoon received 17. Mr. Choi received 14. I was sentenced to 4 years for the documents I had signed. Yejin and Kim Sojin had fled the country in November. Their warrants remained active in 17 jurisdictions. The court read their names into the record anyway. When the bailiff came to take me from the courtroom, my mother stood up in the gallery. She did not say anything. She just stood. My father stood beside her. I bowed to them across the room. Not the polite Korean bow, the other one, the one that means I see you. I am here. I will come home. My father bowed back. The prison was outside Seoul. The cell was small. The fluorescent light overhead was the same as the one in the Goshiwon 2 years earlier. The world had a sense of humor I did not always appreciate. My mother visited every second Saturday. She brought small lunch boxes that the guards inspected and returned to her. She would not let the inspection bother her. She came back the next visit with the same lunchbox. The letter arrived in the 8th month. It was forwarded through Park's office. The envelope was plain. The return address was a single word and a postal code. Daegu. The letter was from the mother of recruit number 7. She had read my name in the court records the previous month. She had asked Park how to write to me. He had given her the address. The letter was 3 pages. It was about her son, about what he had been like as a small boy, about a hike they had taken when he was 9. It was not about what had happened to him. The last line of her letter said this: "I am sorry it was not my son who lived to tell, but I am grateful one of you finally did." I sat with the letter for a long time. The window light moved across the floor. I had time. He had not. I would use mine. I told you, every layer, take care of yourselves.